Hello, dude. How are you?
I'm very good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, all right. Not bad. Are we sort of in sync, are we? Or should I say the word over after...
No, I think we're okay.
You're good? Oh, okay, excellent.
There you go.
Good.
I think that's working.
Wicked. Mate, thanks for the script this morning. By the way, thank you for the gift of Derren Brown. He's been really good. It's been really interesting, but it was really good. How you keeping? You well?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm really excited that you liked the book. Because, as I say, I've just read it for a second time, and I've realised I've misunderstood it entirely.
Oh, wow.
So I'm looking forward to hearing what it was that you liked. I'm looking forward to the so-called moment that you had. So save it for the take.
Yeah, I'll save it for the take, dude. Hello, I am Steve Phillips and welcome to another episode of Audiobook Club, the podcast that remembers with misty eyes the time when it was the world's only interactive audiobook review and recommendation podcast. On this episode, we'll be reviewing A Book of Secrets, Finding Solace in a Stubborn World, the latest in a series of anti-self-help books from TV mentalist Derren Brown. On an equally philosophical but entirely different level, we'll also be looking into the process of buying an audiobook as a present. Not as tangible for either party as the gift of an old-fashioned three-dimensional atoms and molecules book, but it is satisfying both to give and to receive. Joining me down the line from Adelaide in Australia to help me in this double-headed endeavour, it's the person who gave me this week's title as a gift. It's Matt Layton.
Hello, Steve.
Hello, Matt. You could have wrapped it.
Well, I couldn't, could I? That was part of the problem. So you and I met for a beer 2 weeks ago back in the UK, and we're now back at opposite ends of the world. And we were having a conversation, and that conversation inspired me to want to give you the book that we are talking about today, Derren Brown's A Book of Secrets. And I didn't really know how to do it. I assumed I could go onto my phone and press a button and send you the book. But I couldn't. I had to go back home, or come back over here actually, and do it on the website. You're the third person I've given to this book, and in each case, because I couldn't, this is the ultimate of first world problems, because I couldn't do it on the phone, I also had to remember to give it to you, which gets a little harder when you get to my age. Did you enjoy
receiving... how you're sounding here when you talk about first world problems. I could not give you an audiobook from Australia. I couldn't give you an audiobook. I couldn't satisfy my need to give you an audiobook immediately as I was sitting in the pub. And you're very lucky that with my slightly addled brain, I remembered to go to my computer when I get home and send it to you then. So I couldn't instantly give it to you. And that was, well, that added a layer of friction to my life, as we might discuss a little later. Matt, respect to you, because in this fast-moving world where we've all got the attention span of a gnat, you took it upon yourself to remember a thing for a period of time. And it went through all those gates of, having to go back to Australia, using the local website in order to do that. And I mean,
8.5 time zones, mate. Don't mock.
Suggest that don't be surprised if you get an honour through the post. Don't be surprised. Services to remembering. Hang on, this is coming off as really horrible. I don't mean it like that. I mean it as in a funny way. Actually, it sounds a bit like a dad joke, which we'll get onto later on in terms of the moment I had with this book.
There's so much packed in this book. So what we're seriously meant to be doing here is I found sending you an audiobook not as pleasurable an experience as it would be to hand you a tatty old paperback wrapped in an old roll of John Menzies wrapping paper with a tatty little ribbon on it. For you to open in front of me. But at the same time, I was quite excited to send the gift in the new way. What was it like to receive, Steve?
Matt, I've got to be honest with you. And by the way, respect for mentioning mentioning John Menzies because of, well, we're
again
talking to the demographic dude here again. Yeah. I have to say, in all honesty, because we saw each other. We saw each other in London for the first time in goodness knows how long, after COVID and everything.
2.5 years.
We were doing a lot of reminiscing. 2.5 years, doing a lot of reminiscing. We met in a familiar old pub near where we used to work, 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I thought, we are going back to Australia. When are we going to see each other again? And so to get that through the email, saying Matt's gifted you a book, I was like, oh, that's so nice. That is, I mean, the gesture's still the same. You don't need the physical thing, in my view. It's just like the thought was there. Matt Layton has sent you this book. He's gifted you this book. So I was properly moved.
All right. Well, I had one problem, apart from the one where I nearly didn't remember, which is because actually there was a part of me that was sending it for business purposes. I needed to send you a note with a little bit of a briefing and a little bit of my comment, a little bit of fluffing for what I thought about the book. And I only had 270 characters, I think. So I ran out of steam. I didn't get to ramble on. But again, it's not really a problem, is it? It's as you indicate, it's the thought that counts. But I think we'd like before we get stuck into the book ourselves, we'd like to get some interaction from our gentle listener as to how they feel about the process of giving I have to say, I still haven't received an audiobook, so I'm very much looking forward to when that email pops into my inbox. I kind of want to...
Absolutely right.
I feel, Steve, that as evangelists for the medium, maybe this should become our thing. Maybe it's the thing that people should know you and me for, personally in our lives is, oh yeah, it's great. Because everybody else gives flowers and chocolates and wine. We're giving the gift of audiobooks. Maybe that should be our signature move amongst our friends and family. What do you think?
That's a great idea. You know what? Actually, maybe we could give that gift to one of our listeners for something cool they do. They send a review or they recommend a really good book, and we could gift it to them. When we get a listener who gets in touch with us, that's a good idea.
First interaction gets an audiobook. There you go.
There you go. Perfect. There we go. Done. If you interact with us, we'll give you an audiobook. I mean, you can't say fairer than that, can you?
The first person to send us a comment either about this week's book, A Book of Secrets by Derren Brown, or the sidebar. Hey, I've got an idea for this little feature. We talk about philosophical stuff about audiobooks. I think, what do we call about notes in the margin, Steve? What do you think?
Oh, lovely. Get down the patent office, no, the copyright office, whichever it is. Yeah, get down at an official office and put your beach towel on it.
Yeah, fill in the requisite form A280 to register a hashtag. Notes and margin. So hashtag audiobook club. This is your bit. Hashtag audiobook club. Let us know. First person to interact with us after this week's show, we will gift them an audiobook.
We think they should read. Yeah. There we go. Like that. Just by the way, before we finish off, notes in the margin.
Nice.
Notes from the margin. Trying to. I'll get it down pat for next week. But
we have to get a little man or a little lady to say it for us. Notes in the margin.
The only thing. Yeah, the only thing that takes the shine, I love the gesture. I was very, very moved when you said the sentence, I was the third person you give this to. Now, I mean, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. But, just for the sake of, information, really. Out of the three, was I first out of the three, or was I last? Or it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, of course.
I sent it in chronological order of the people I saw while I was away.
Clever.
I saved you because you're the best till last, and actually you're the first to thank me for sending it to you, so you win.
That makes me the best. Well, not that it's about that, but
it's always about being the best, Steve.
It's always about being the best, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm the best. That's good. Okay, right. Well, are we done with that? Are we on to the next section?
Next slide.
Next slide.
I began writing this book in New York in 2019 and finished it back home nearly 2 years later following a house move, a 50th birthday, the death of a loved one, and a global plague. Life, it turns out, can be difficult, but I presume that most of my experience of it is in essence unremarkable. Thus, I hope that many of you feel the same types of unease, or will at least find some use for the thoughts I offer here. I'll draw on the lessons I've gleaned from my own ruminations, as well as the lunacy of those 2 years, and the great ideas of others to whom my work has led me.
So this week's book, Matt, tell us all about Derren Brown and your relationship with him.
Yeah. This is a busy book. There is a lot of stuff in it. I have found some of the most important thoughts that I've ever had have been inspired by sentences that are just a single part of a really long list. So I'm going to rely on the structure heavily on the structure that you and I have relied on in the past to communicate these things. This time I'm using it as a crutch so that I don't mess up. So first of all, we'll have a little chat about the author. Then we will talk about the text of the book itself. And then, as we always do, we'll have a chat about the audiobook experience and the narrator. So the author first, Derren Brown. And the amazing thing is, in Australia where I am, people haven't heard of him. He's most famous in the UK for being a TV mentalist. And to quote, he had a series of programs in the early 2000s which used a combination of magic, suggestion, psychology, misdirection, and showmanship to pull off effectively magic tricks for the modern era, often involving hypnosis. The one that sticks in my head, the first thing I remember of him, was a grainy film of a London street with a phone ringing in a call box, and a member of the public, seemingly randomly, opens the call box door, goes in, answers the phone, and listens for about 10 seconds and then collapses suddenly on the floor. Do you remember that bit, Steve?
No, I don't. I never really watched his show. I've seen bits and pieces of it. I've seen like one or two things he's done, but I couldn't even recall them to you. I come to Derren Brown after a big hiatus and sounding pretty fresh, so I'm a bit of a blank canvas. Paint on me.
So the other things he went on to do, he went to do a number of specials. I mean, to me, these things were quite impactful. He went on to do a number of television specials before Netflix invented the concept, about 15 years later. He played Russian roulette live on television with an actual gun. He predicted the lottery numbers. And, well, to me, it felt exciting and new. I'm surprised you hadn't really captured him, because I mean, if I bring up names from the 1980s of the magicians, the people who did magic stuff on the telly that we watched growing up, so the Great Soprendo and Paul Daniels and Ali Bongo, I enjoyed watching those.
Ali Bongo,
you're welcome.
The Bunko Booth.
Very. See, I knew I'd get you somewhere in here. It's like,
I don't think you can say the Great Soprendo's magic words anymore, can you? I don't think.
No, you certainly can't. You can't say the third one.
No, you certainly can't. Don't Google them.
Although Derren Brown might. He can get away with it. But that was magic until that point. It's like next week, Steve, the book I'd quite like to do, and if we can try and get the author as an interviewee, that'd be great. It's narrated by Rory Kinnear, and to that you'll just go, and then I'll go, it's Roy Kinnear's son, Steve, and you'll go,
I knew that, actually. You see, that I know.
Yeah, but you love Roy Kinnear. You would rather have Roy Kinnear on than
obviously,
Rory Kinnear.
I love Roy Kinnear. Roy Kinnear was obviously the voiceover on Bertha, the kids' show, naturally, amongst obviously the great other stuff that he did as well. But Rory Kinnear was brilliant in Count Arthur Strong.
Good.
He was great on that. Love him. Yeah.
And in the James Bond films, of course. We'll come back to that later.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, this was a magical entertainment type thing that Derren Brown did that got rid of the spangly dresses and brightly lit TV studios and made stuff we didn't understand happen in front of our very eyes, underneath the sort of drizzly grey skies of London and the streets of growling traffic. And that's where you and I were living at the time, Steve. So for me, that was fascinating and has given me a great interest in him, and I've been following his career lately, and it comes up in this book. He's had a run on Broadway, which is quite a hard thing to get. He has also had a Netflix special, and he's taken the time to narrate several audiobooks. And we're very grateful to him for taking the time to do that. On a personal note, if you had a look at my phone, I've got about 500 audiobooks that I've listened to since getting the Audible app a few years ago. You'll see the first one I downloaded was Derren Brown's Hypnosis. So it's the most recent audiobook I've read, and it was the first audiobook I read. And what got me into it is I have a long-standing interest, possibly partly fueled by Derren Brown, in the idea of using hypnosis to help you get to sleep. And I wanted, and nobody's doing it very well, and I wanted to do it again. But that was the reason that led me to purchase the hypnosis book. And then I went on to the other 3 books in that loose series. I don't even know which order they were written because I came to them late. They're called Magic, Confession, Memory, and Tricks of the Mind. There's actually 4 of them. I forgot about Memory briefly, ironically.
The 4th in the trilogy.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry. Yeah. So I think there were 5 books in total. Yeah. But most recently, he's written, well, what this series, I guess, that he's calling anti-self-help books. There was Happy in 2017, I think, and A Little Happier in 2018, both of which, well, considering how incorrectly I think I've interpreted or misremembered A Book of Secrets, I think I need to go and read those again. But they're the idea that in a world where religion is old hat, how do you navigate your way through life, and find a code by which to live? And some of what he lands on is Stoic philosophy, but again, as the further he gets into the series, the more he rejects that. Does that sound like the Derren Brown you know, Steve?
It does. He's someone I always kept meaning to watch, because it's obviously very, very impressive what he does. But I was very much a casual viewer, and when I caught him, I just thought, wow, that's just incredible. But I wish I'd seen more of him. So I'm going to go back, and after reading this book, I'm going to go back and YouTube the YouTube him like I've never YouTubed anyone else before.
Yeah, and it is possible. So I wanted to show the girls that Wizzy in particular has a taste for the macabre and the slightly off kilter stuff. So I showed her not only the guy walking to the phone box and picking up the phone, listening for 10 seconds, and then crumpling in a heap, but also the one where the bloke goes to sleep in his house in Crawley or wherever it is and wakes up in the middle of a bustling market in Tangiers, or I say wakes up in a photo booth in a bustling market in Tangiers. So yeah, they're all there on YouTube to watch, and I would recommend it.
I'll be straight there.
There's an interesting thing going on here, and I haven't written it in my script, Steve, but what he's done with this book reminds me slightly, Derren Brown, of, Al Murray, the pub landlord?
Yeah.
He does the stand-up routine on, him dressed as a pub landlord, explaining his pub landlord view of the world. But actually, if you look at it very closely, Al Murray is quite a well-educated, eloquent, and frankly, liberal person. Are you aware of that? Does that make sense? I
am very much aware of that. Yeah. Well, he stood in the I don't know where you're going with this, but he stood in the election, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, that's right. He stood against Farage in Thanet. That's right. And there is a thing where recently, I should imagine after you've played that character for years, and that's actually not your personality, I just get the feeling that Al Murray felt trapped by that stage persona. And the interesting thing is his has the same name. And he has since gone on to make, well, he's establishing himself as an expert on German history and World War II. And the interesting thing is, so he grew a beard and put on a Homburg and went round and basically, I think, tried to show a bit more depth to his personality and what he does. And you knew it wasn't Al Murray, the pub landlord, because he had a hat on and he had a beard, rather than being the 2 days of stubble, shaven-headed pub landlord. And there's a little bit here where I get the impression that Derren Brown, the first thing I remember is the person falling over in the phone box. And I think there's an element to what he's doing here where he's not necessarily rebranding, but he's possibly a little frustrated at the stage character that he's had for all of these years. Because the Derren Brown on stage it's very, very structured and very, very written and very contrived. It sounds a negative word, but I don't mean it that way. And there's almost a thing where he's going, I'm not just some sort of clowning magician. I also have some thoughts as well. So I almost wanted to put on the Homburg. I wanted to put on a hat so that we know that it's not stage Derren, or is it stage Derren Brown? I don't know. All right, let's get to the book while I'm confusing myself. In the run-up to this episode, I read this book a second time. The book has been really helpful to me. As discussed, I've given it to 3 people. And then I started to read the book the day before yesterday. And it suddenly occurred to me that I'd misunderstood and misremembered it. Reading it for a second time changes your view on it. From the very first 2 words, the dedication. I don't normally pay attention to dedications and the quotes at the beginning. But the dedication of this book, the first time I read it, was for Dad. And I didn't quite realise how significant that was. Because obviously a fair part of the book is about the loss of his father during the pandemic. I'm going to make excuses. I'm going to go, it's a very densely written, very busy book. So it's hard to sum up. And I think we may even come back to it. If we can somehow get Derren Brown to come and have a chat with us, I think there's enough material for more than a couple of episodes here, Steve.
Yeah, I agree. I have to say, the only thing I knew in terms of impressions of Derren Brown was that I've seen 1 or 2 of his, a few minutes of his shows, and then I was completely taken aback, coming completely fresh to him all these years, 20 years later. And it was, you couldn't miss a word in terms of the philosophizing.
And I'm getting my excuses in early because I'm now about to do my thing where I try and summarize the book. That's what you're meant to do. That's what Mark Kermode does when he talks about a film. First of all, he tells you what the book's about or the film's about, and I'm going to try that with the book. So, but I don't feel I'm going to do an adequate job, and you can correct me, and we invite our gentle listener to correct me as well. So the way I'm going to put it is it's part memoir, part sort of academic exercise. So academically, he does all the right things about structuring his arguments and quoting his sources, and the sources he quotes are interesting and varied. In terms of writing the book, Mr. Brown started in 2019 while performing on Broadway and finishes in the nearly post-COVID world of 2021, his father having died during the pandemic. So that's where he is in terms of time and I guess emotionally when writing the book. It's the contrast of being in New York to being on the end of a Zoom call as his father, talking to his mother as his father dies. It's that kind of idea. So he also weaves in other stuff. So when in New York, he describes the people he sees walking past. When he's at home later on, he describes rearranging the bottles of cleaning product in his cupboard. But each of those stories serves a purpose to add to a greater argument. It leads to some sort of philosophical idea about seeing, in the case of the people walking past in New York, he makes assumptions about them. We all have to make assumptions about people in order to survive in the urban jungle. And then, the idea of order and cleaning his house and memories of his father all comes into the simple stuff. His father's death is hard to read. You and I, Steve, are very lucky. Our dads are still alive. His father dies during COVID, the alienating experience of not being able to hug at the funeral. His ashes were delivered in a plastic bag. But there's a thing where always behind it, that there is some sort of purpose going on. There's one of two things happening here, Steve. I'm going to ask you which one you think it is. Either he's going through life and jotting down what he's saying and then thinking of something afterwards that goes, oh yeah, that's a good metaphor for this. Or, as someone who's familiar with his stage shows, you know that what he's doing is planting little seeds and structures all along the way and thoughts that will all come together at the end and make sense in one way. Which of those do you think it is, Steve?
What I found was that he really brought to life the philosophy of, he really kind of exploded what people are like. That's what I found. And he used the example of his dad's death about how you deal with things and how you cope with that and what you do. And, but not, it was like life all around it, not just about his dad's death, but he really paid attention to the minutiae, the little things, and how what a mind goes through when that something like that happens and what you do, and that kind of got applied to the whole story. Yeah, that's what I found. I didn't feel like it was he was using the structure of one of his shows to make a point necessarily. He was drawing on a lot of other people as well, a lot of his philosophers and a lot of, there's a lot of research that had gone into this book that really sort of highlighted his points as well, which, so it felt to me, this was not at all Derren Brown, the mentalist, at all. I found it to be a completely different person. I did not believe it was Derren Brown's story, actually, because it didn't feel like Derren Brown from the little I know of him,
That's interesting, and a very non-cynical view. And I asked those type of questions. Is he chancing it and getting another book deal out of his publisher and then just writing whatever comes to his head and relating it to something philosophical? Or is there an underlying structure there that he mapped out when he started writing the book? And I think you're right. It feels like it does feel like you're being taken down, and taken down a path, doesn't it? And he's very good. I mean, so there are two things I wanted to ask you about. One of which is, he mentions that he goes to a dinner party while in New York. A celebrity couple, American royalty as he refers to them, come backstage and invite him to a party at their house, and he freezes.
Then later, approaching the dinner table from the buffet, with my plated meal in hand, I searched for my name card on the table and saw, with incredulity, that I'd been allocated the seat next to the esteemed lady of the house. Me! It made no sense to me. She has so many friends here. I considered making a switch, but it wasn't an option. Instead, I sat down, then she did the same, and for an hour and a half I found myself denuded of all charm, unable to maintain a conversation beyond a few pleasantries. A ghost of my former post-show self, I ducked low into my plate and ate turkey.
So he's in the company of all these interesting people, and he gets entirely tongue-tied. And I'm doing it myself now. But he uses that as a way to talk about his own frailties and perhaps help us out by saying, even I, who stand on the stage on Broadway and do all these things on television, you'd be quite surprised to hear that I'm a bit shy, and here's how I get around it. Did Did that one stick in your head, Steve? That story?
It did. I mean, he really. We hear this a lot, don't we? You know, if you're a famous performer, particularly if you're a comedian as well, a lot of comedians, a lot of funny people in inverted commas, are the most serious. They are the most shy. They're the most introverted people around. So it didn't altogether surprise me that he said that.
As anyone who's watched Rowan Atkinson on The One Show will know.
Well, I mean, exactly.
That's a chewy bit of telly, that is.
Yeah, exactly. But do you know what? But he smashed it he smashed it. I hate saying these sort of things. I sound like such an American. He killed it. When he went on Stephen Colbert's late night show, Rowan Atkinson went on Stephen Colbert's late night show, and he was very funny. He was very quiet. But then he did a piece of physical comedy, which is what everyone loves Rowan Atkinson for, because I'm doing Mr. Bean now. It's great. And with Derren Brown, going to that dinner party, talking, being very, very candid about exactly how he felt and the mechanisms for going around that. And actually, he said he sort of, from what I took from that, from what I remember him saying, he's built like lots of mechanisms to these sort of social interactions, these social occasions, that he's actually starting to enjoy or feel more comfortable with them now, and wants to go and enjoy them. But he has to go through a bit of a journey to do that.
I'm aware of being more familiar with his work. I'm aware that most of the things he does are layered, and he indicates it here as well. But how much does that story stick in your head because you want to know who that celebrity couple are, and you're trying to work it out?
Oh, of course, naturally.
Who do you reckon it is?
Well, couldn't it? Not the Crankies. Stay with me. Bernie Clifton. No.
You see Bernie Winters and Schnorbitz.
Actually, this gets on. Another dad joke. Yeah, that was Bernie Winters, wasn't it? Bernie Winters.
So actually, I was thinking Ben Affleck, who recently got married to J-Lo. I thought that for a second, and then. As I'm talking to you now, I've gone Mr. and Mrs. Clooney. They're like royalty. But the thing is, you don't know. But the way he does it is that story stays with you longer because he plants that seed of, he's very deliberately not telling you who this supposed royal couple are. I don't know, although I doubt that they were quite as erudite as he said his. I think it's the Clooneys.
Yeah, or potentially Jimmy Kimmel and his wife.
Mr. and Mrs. Kimmel.
Mr. and Mrs. Kimmel, potentially.
See, the thing is, that's the thing. Everybody knows, so it can't be George Clooney because they're both Hollywood royalty. See, we're doing it, but at the same time, what we've done, what the social underlying purpose of that, and I think the purpose of the entire book is to reel you in with loads of interesting stories that you can relate to, and he's not afraid to show his white underbelly and his own frailties as well. But the ultimate purpose of the book is to help you enjoy your life more. And you remember the little anecdotes about how to break through the barriers of getting past. Well, it's about shyness, but it's also about getting through the barrier of small talk when getting to know somebody. And it's a simple tip for that. But you remember it because if it's the bit you choose to remember, because of the thoughts you had about who is this Hollywood couple. I think that's what it's doing. I think that's how it works. Having watched his shows where you suddenly realise the number's been on the stage behind him all the time, that he's putting stuff there that leads you to a conclusion and helps you remember stuff, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I think that's a really astute observation there, Matt. Yes, he did. He made it very, very accessible. Sometimes, I mean, we're bombarded all the time with self-help stuff at various stages of life, different situations of life the whole time, and actually just him using illustrations from his life, from his condition, from the way he is, along with drawing in theories, hypotheses, drawing in research from other philosophers and that sort of thing. Well, I mean,
but the other things that add to it is like
so accessible.
Then it's interesting. You do get Schopenhauer and Hegel in here, who are highfalutin German philosophers. I seem to remember that he did a degree in German. It didn't specify German history and German literature, but the Rainer Maria Rilke stuff and the Hegel in particular, I remember from my degree doing German. Yeah, so he does that, but there's also quotes, people who've made Netflix series and the New York Times. Visis Profanosaurus gets a mention, Steve. I thought you might like that. It
does, doesn't it? That was the moment. That was for me. That it was that section for me was where I had the penny dropping epiphanal moment. Basically,
that was your moment, was it? So
it's always a moment when you mentioned a bit of Fry and Laurie and and
hold on, let's set it up. So the thing is, he says he has an epiphany. And he is standing, just about to move house. He's standing in the downstairs toilet where lots of people do keep tatty books covered in fecal matter for anybody who has the bad manners to come around their house and have a dump. When you go around someone else's house, it's only number ones, isn't it, Steve? That's the polite societal way to do it. His books up there include Visis Profanosaurus, which is a dictionary from a vulgar comic from the 1980s and 1990s. He has a bit of Fry and Laurie, when Hugh Laurie and Stephen Fry used to do a sketch show in the 1980s. He's got the scripts of all those and various other downstairs toilet books. And he has a moment where he, to him, they're all his precious things and the stuff that keeps him snug. And they are an expression of him and his personality and how wacky and he is. And then suddenly he looks at them when he has to move them to the other house and go, this is just a weird collection of old man's books.
Something made me picture the new home to which we were moving, a country place with Tudor beams and low ceilings, which would take work to keep from looking chintzy. Then as I considered these books, musical reviews by George Bernard Shaw, the Visis Profanosaurus, I imagined them on the shelves at that house. And that's what did it. Quite suddenly, as I stood there, facing my lavatory in a very familiar way, just 3 days before my 50th birthday, they flipped, changed, and along with them, the whole world. There was a moment before it happened, when they were still that familiar collection of old volumes and memories, a homely backdrop of affectionately relegated relics. And then, in an instant, as I pictured them in the bathroom of their new home, a nausea descended. They became, horrifyingly, an old man's collection of books.
I'm also wearing cardigans. I used to wear them in an ironic way. Now I'm just an old man wearing a cardigan. Was that your moment?
You can't see this, obviously, but just out of shot, and I'm looking, just while you were talking there, I was looking really fearfully behind me at my collection of books. On the shelf, there is the Profanosaurus Rex, the bumper edition of the Profanosaurus. I've got a dog-eared copy of the complete Fawlty Towers scripts.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit off mic as I look round here.
It makes it sound authentic, Steve.
I've got a book of Coleman balls.
Yeah.
They're not even called Coleman balls anymore because David Coleman has long since departed.
Very much of the ilk of the time, and yeah.
Yeah, even more so, as somewhere in the house is the only magazine produced by the Not the 9 O'Clock News team. And it's an amazing read, but it was dog-eared when I was a kid. I mean, you can imagine what it looks like now.
Just behind me is my, I guess, 800 or 900 piece CD collection, which is my thing of possessions. And whenever if I pull out a CD, I can look at it and I go, I remember when I bought this. I look at the price tag and remember the shop I was in when I bought it. And then there's the music in there as well. We had to move all of those down to Australia. Maretta refers to them as the bane of her life. And I go, well, look, when I die, just put them in a skip. I don't care. They are my possessions. They mean something to me. And now I look back at, that Pet Shop Boys album from the early 90s and its bright orange cover, which is a special possession at the time. And I go, well, that's a 30-year-old anachronism, isn't it? I don't know. So
really depressing.
But was it a depressing moment for you, Steve?
No, it was an alarming moment because, and I mentioned this on the radio the other day because I mentioned this moment, it was that moment when he said he went through the books and then he went through what he was wearing. And then he said, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't recall the exact words, but something along the lines of, you grow up thinking you're the wittiest guy around. You grow up thinking you're so funny and people are laughing at you. And then all of a sudden, mid-40s, you're just someone who tells dad jokes. And even while we've been recording this podcast, I've chucked a couple in there just because, I don't know, I've got like I don't know, just have to blurt them out, thinking this'll be witty, and I can't stop it before I've said it. But actually, it just comes out, and I have been told this by an audience of friends and family. Can you tone down the dad jokes? And I just thought, what happened? I mean, I'm talking about a bit of Fry and Laurie, and not necessarily the Profanosaurus, but bit of Fry and Laurie, the Scriptures, Fawlty Towers, the Not 9 O'Clock News thing. And thinking they were the funniest books out and everyone has to read them. TV Go Home by Charlie Brooker is another one, but maybe less so. But they're not anymore. They're now considered old. I mean, I think they're great, but now suddenly that's it. That's it for you and I. We can't do anything funny anymore on this podcast because we're told we're doing dad jokes, and I really bristle at that.
He didn't do music, but it was the bit where I had to explain to a colleague who was having a rant about dad rock recently. He said, I just want to play some Beastie Boys. And I had to explain to him, you do realise that the Beastie Boys albums came out in the mid-80s, and they are now effectively dad rock. It's when the Beastie Boys get to be dad rock, then we're getting old. That's the point, though, isn't it? You and I are of this age. This book is for us. I mentioned earlier on that when he did the Trick of the Mind stuff, the first television stuff back in the 2000s, it felt like it was for us, and it felt young and edgy. It's almost like when we talked to Ben Folds, when he did his music, it was new. But in the way we listened, he mentioned that the way we listen to music these days, when we get a little older, it's in a sentimental way and we go back to it. How things change when you get to middle age. We now listen to our Ben Folds albums because they are familiar, and they were our sound, they were our time. And I have very much that thing with Derren Brown as well. You and I, he's grown up with us, I guess. And I think the first time I read the book, I got it wrong, Steve. The reason I gave you the book in the first place was because I'd clearly subconsciously cherry-picked some bits out of it and taken some stuff for me. And then when I listened to it again, I couldn't hear it again. So the bit I picked out of it, and remember, I've been stuck in Australia for 2.5 years and had missed my friends, gradually gone more and more back into my shell, because when you haven't phoned someone for a few months, you then continue to go back in your shell. I'm not phoning them now. It's a bit embarrassing. I'd missed my parents, and my life or my core nuclear family was the focus, and I was finding it quite hard. And what I heard the first time I read the book was something along the lines of, everybody knows it's difficult to be a teenager. We've all been through that. However, not everyone has been through their 40s and 50s, the moments we've just had, the sudden realizations that we're talking about, where it's not about defining who you are anymore. It's do the same thing over and over again, get up the following morning, rinse and repeat. And it's about not falling out with your partner or finding a way to trudge through that relationship. He doesn't mention kids. I don't think he has kids. But he doesn't mention that, but I applied that logic to being a dad. And having reread the book this week, I'm worried that I've got all that bit wrong. Another thing that stood out for me that fueled my thoughts as I flew back to the UK is it's between two commas in one of his long rambling lists.
Ready for their bow are our parents, who loved us in their imperfect way, and whom we loved back in ours, who shaped us more than anyone, who instilled in us clusters of energized sensitivity towards certain triggers that would come to shape the emotional landscape of our adult world, and who died before we could say everything we should. Most parents want us to say thank you, while most children hope for sorry.
There's just a little line that says, in the parent-child relationship, as adults, the children are looking for an apology, the parents are looking for a thank you. And it was just those 6 or 7 words. It was stuck in my mind and reinforced or bolstered or reframed the way I was going to behave to my parents anyway, because I love them very much. But it was just one sentence that was one phrase that was part of a list of 5 or 6 things that stuck out to me and stayed in my head. Did you have any of those?
Yeah, I mean, it's largely actually the thing that stands out was what we've just talked about. I mean, that really stuck out for me. It really spoke to me. It gave me an explanation, because I've been kind of, I guess, sort of recently just feeling that was going on. You know, it was starting, you know, that sort of feeling that if you are your age, you know, and you know, and actually, it was the period. It was the passage of text after that where he gave you that moment of saying, you know, you've gone from being the witty guy, the wearing things ironically guy, the cool guy. If I'm not playing that to me, by the way, never cool. But then he talks about actually more widely how to embrace everything, how to actually see through that, how to find the joy in this period of life now, and that really helped.
So does that mean
helped my psychosis?
Well, exactly. Well, it, as I say, what this book does is, if nothing else, it kind of helps you to muddle through what's going on. Does that mean that you wouldn't recommend this book to someone in their 20s or 30s?
I absolutely would. If it's just because it's got lots of brilliant insights about life anyway. You know, I mean, it really, a lot of it made sense. When he talks about the experimentation that he did on left-wingers and right-wingers, and he actually performed a very, very precise experiments to actually get them to see the opposition's view, because we live in a world now where everyone is up for an argument. Everyone is so, I mean, social media is a skewed sort of community anyway, where people are just, you know, shooting from the lip all the time. But there is that sort of undercurrent of kind of resentment, anger. I mean, there's lots of things to do with that, the way kind of the politics is now. You know, you could chuck Brexit in there and all the rest of it. But he does really kind of, he doesn't get political necessarily, you know, and he doesn't come across like he's got an agenda, but he actually breaks it down. And I think there are some really valuable insights, lessons, whatever you want to call it, there for anyone younger. You know, so absolutely get this if you're in your 20s.
Okay, but again, even with the social media stuff, the book is very much of the now, as they say, and of its place in time as well. I notice he says back at home. There's interestingly a more American. He talks about Democrats and Republicans more when he's in New York. And he talks about Brexit more when he's in the UK. It's very much set in a place as well as a time, I think, the book. But the overarching thought again behind it is, what he's done is identified a problem that upsets many of us or causes many of us some stress. which is the combative nature of social media. I certainly found that in general in the UK, when I was back, having not been there for 2.5 years, I think two things had happened. London had got harder and I'd got softer, but everybody seemed to be more angry after a very difficult couple of years with Brexit and COVID. I think everyone had been through a trauma, and I think what he's doing is suggesting ways to get through that. The other thing that worries me in modern life, particularly as a father of two 10-year-old daughters, is the addictive nature of the mobile phone. I don't think society was ready for the sea change that the iPhone and Android equivalents brought. And he examines that as well. He examines the way that the people making the phones, the people making the stuff that happens on the phones are all trying to make it as addictive as possible for you. And yeah, I enjoyed the thought on that. So not only is it about the how to make your life a bit easier as you get older and the stuff that's specific to that, I think there are just, as you say, some general tips for, here's some difficult things in life at the moment, here's my thoughts on them, I hope they help. I think that's what's going on.
Yeah, agree with you. I really loved his voice. Really was just perfect for the text as well, wasn't it?
Brilliant. I'm really glad you did that, because I was just in my head. I'm going, right. We've just hit 50 minutes and we haven't got onto the bit that we're meant to do as we wind up a half an hour and talk about the narration. I agree with you.
I was planting seeds there, by the way.
Were you nudging me on? Were you trying to get me out of the room? Yeah.
Yes. Now I'm going to make you wake up in Tangiers in a phone box.
Right. Voice.
Excessive conviction is a trap our natures have set for all of us, and its scarlet distension is usually evident on both sides of any dispute. When I wrangle with my partner over who has more neglected the pile of Thursday's plates, with their yellowed and bumpy terrain of stiffened Port Salut, and whether the more contemptible crime is omitting to load the dishwasher or forgetting to unload it, I engage in a join-the-dots exercise in selective storytelling.
I have read a Derren Brown book where he didn't narrate it. There was a weird period when Happy first came out where they got a gob on a stick to do it. I don't want to cast aspersions on the voiceover artist who did it, but by the very nature of it, that person was not as engaged in the ideas and not as good at being Derren Brown as Derren Brown is. As you know, when it says read by the author, that is not always a good thing. But in this case, I've been there where he doesn't read it, and frankly, it's essential because he's so engaged in the ideas. There's even bits where he takes liberties with the text and spells things out C rather than C, that actually a renter voiceover artist wouldn't be able to do. The way I would describe it is he is quite posh in it. He is very much, you can picture him on stage in a tweed suit, possibly in a lecture theatre, or on a stage dolled out to look like a lecture theatre, with a pointy stick, wandering up and down, giving us all examples. I believe the word is didactic. It's quite teachy, but it's also quite showman-y. He uses showmanship. It's showman-y. Did you find it at times impenetrable, Steve?
If you found yourself pressing the back 10 seconds button a fair bit, if you missed something, if your mind wandered. So I listen to a lot of these things in the car, a lot of audiobooks in the car, and if I have to concentrate on the road properly, as I do all the time, of course, you might miss something, so you pull over, you turn the engine off, and then you you rewind a few 30 seconds or so, because you can't. Otherwise, it's like it just reminds me of when I started off at university studying philosophy, and I dropped out of that, and the reason being was if you missed so much as 10 seconds of what was being talked about, that was the whole hour done. You were never going to catch up with what they were talking about. Because it was so deep, intense, whatever you want to call it. And that's what I found at points with this. But that's why the book for me really sort of stuck out with kind of beacons, little gems that you can take on board. And that's where I found it. So that's how it kind of worked for me. It doesn't take anything away from how great I thought the book was at all. It's just the way I kind of ingested it, I think.
Yeah, and I haven't emphasised enough just how great his vocal performance is, how it reminds me of his stage shows. I do absolutely nothing important when listening to audiobooks, and I had to stop, rewind. As I said, I don't listen to things twice. And I got something totally different out of it the second, and it was bewilderment, admittedly, but I got something totally different out of it the second time that I read it. And if I'm going to sum it all up, which is, again, this has only just popped into my head, so forgive me if it's cheesy, but there's almost a bit about it where it's a book that's going to become familiar to us because we're going to go back to it. And it's something you can pick up and put down again. And almost, doesn't it make it one of the toilet books?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. You wouldn't go, let's just say that you wouldn't go to the toilet for the book necessarily. And it's not so, you would kind of pick it up. You kind of pick it up in between other books. So, for example, if you felt like you needed a bit of a laugh when you go to the toilet, then you might pick up, I don't know, the scripts of Fawlty Towers or A Bit of Fry and Laurie. But what
you're saying is, if you're having one of those really sinky dumps, you would pick up Derren Brown's A Book of Secrets.
There is a section of the TV Go Home book where it discusses the protocol of being around someone else's house and what you should do in the toilet.
In the downstairs, with the downstairs toilet books.
Yes,
yeah.
Describes things as terms, uses terms such as plunge down. And so, anyway, that's an audio book. It's not an audio book, probably for the best. Can
I just say we've descended into the toilet here, but I think
and on that note,
yeah. Can we just say again? Unfortunately, we have taken away from the fact that this is an incredibly well written, very complicated book that, like one of Steve's philosophy lectures, if you miss 10 minutes, you're going to miss part of the argument. But like Derren Brown's shows, your little bits are being put subliminally into the back of your mind. His showmanship. As I say, I can't say it any other way than to say I've listened to a Derren Brown book without Derren Brown narrating. It felt wrong. Everything he gives to the performance is fantastic. And overall, both times I've read it, I felt better equipped to deal with my drudgy life afterwards. And we recommend it.
Shall we see what other people think of it?
That's a very good idea, Steve.
Okay, so just use the hashtag Audiobook Club. We'll pick it up, whatever social channel is your choice, whatever you prefer, whatever floats your boat. Use the hashtag Audiobook Club. Tell us what you thought of Derren Brown and the book Finding Solace in a Stubborn World, A Book of Secrets. That title, not necessarily in that order. That's from Derren Brown. Let us know what your thoughts on it. I know I couldn't even read straight. The philosophy has just totally blown my mind just recounting it. So, what's next then, amigo?
Well, there are two things. So, first one is my day job. As you know, I work for Vision Australia Radio UK, which is like in the UK, it's the RNIB. It's a charity for blind people, does guide dogs and white sticks and stuff. And they have a network of radio stations. Every week, I talk to somebody who can't see very well or about an issue for people who can't see very well. This week's show is about a guy called Eric Weinmeier. He was the first blind man to get to the top of Everest, which is, when you read the book, much harder than you think. I'm more interested in hearing what you think of the first two chapters of the book, Steve, and I would like to send that to you, and I shall send it to you as a gift after this show. In terms of how good a guest he is, I was watching something I watch every week these days, which is, it's only about a couple of months in, but it's a guy, an American comedian called Bill Maher, who interviews people in his basement with a drink in his hand and his so-called clove cigarettes. His guest last week was Jay Leno, who presented the Tonight Show for 20-odd years and must have interviewed over 10,000 people in the course of that. The first guest he mentions is Eric. So I got an interview with him. I've read his book recently. I'm feeling a little lazy. I'm going to make you read the first couple of chapters of that book. The book that, of all his 10,000 guests, Jay Leno mentions first. So it's a good book. And then coming up is the release of the fourth book in Anthony Horowitz's murder mystery books, which star... there've been all sorts of detectives. There's the little old lady detective, there's the Belgian detective, there's the drunk detective, there's the middle-aged woman detective. And what Anthony Horowitz has done is write a series of books where he begrudgingly is one of the lead characters involved in the murder mysteries, and they are absolutely brilliant. So very excited, Steve. You and I have recently been given access to, we're now able to listen to Penguin books before they come out, so we can actually be prepared.
What?
I know.
So we never discussed this about this being prepared, Lark.
So there is. I'm just looking at. You can tell I'm playing for time. So it's called The Twist of a Knife, a gripping locked room mystery from the best-selling crime writer Anthony Horowitz. It's the fourth in his Hawthorne series of books, and I just think they're brilliant and can't wait to get my grubby mitts on my preview copy of that.
Oh, you certainly wetted my appetite. Brilliant. Okay, right then. That's the plan then. So next week...
Oh, hold on a sec. Hold on. Don't we do the thing where if it's a series of 4 books and you haven't read the first one, I read the latest one and you read the first one? That's how it works, isn't it?
Okay, yeah, I'll read the first one.
I'm going to gift you 2 books after this. Oh, and remember... Too much, Matt. And remember that the first listener who interacts with us online, either by talking about the experience of giving or receiving an audiobook, or by commenting on one of the books that we're recommending / reviewing, gets an audiobook off us.
Yep, that's it. Yeah, I think what a great prize. It's as good a prize as when you used to win a yacht if you lived in Warwickshire on Bullseye. Yep, there you go. And that is a slightly niche joke, not necessarily for our global listeners there. Google Bullseye, the game show. So there you go. That was A Book of Secrets, Finding Solace in a Stubborn World from Derren Brown, written and narrated by the author. It comes in at 6 hours and 19 minutes, published by Penguin Audio. So get a download, have a listen. And don't forget, you can interact if you want that audiobook. Interact with us, use our hashtag Audiobook Club. And we'll pick it up, we'll read it out next week, and then hopefully give you an audiobook. We'll see you next time.